So, it's been a little minute. It's been about a month since my last upload. Been a little while, but hasn't been for naught. I haven't just been lollygagging. I've been catching up on some reading. And recently, I just finished Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man is pretty buzzing right now. It has an anime that's coming out pretty soon. Trailer dropped a little while ago. Looks pretty hard. Looks pretty cool. But Chainsaw Man is something that's been on my radar for a long time. Just haven't gotten to reading it. But the series isn't complete yet, but the first part of the series, the first, I believe, 11 volumes, are completed and done. And finally felt like, let me go ahead and take a look at this. And Chainsaw Man is pretty good. It's a pretty great manga. It's something completely different than I've ever really read before. Like, I definitely, feel some influences from, other types of manga. But it's definitely something totally different than what I initially expected. Because I remember seeing the covers of Chainsaw Man and seeing that the main character is a guy that can turn into a chainsaw. I expected it to be some type of ridiculous, almost gag type gory manga where it didn't take itself too seriously, because the main character can turn into a chainsaw. Like, where is this gonna go? But it went places, and it's a pretty dark, gritty manga, pretty dark and gritty story that incorporates a lot of concepts that I've never really seen before, and I really give it high praise for that. It's a really dope read. If you haven't read it, go ahead and read it. Don't wait for the anime, because you can still enjoy the anime when it comes out. But even though I am giving it its praises because it's a pretty good manga, there were some issues with it. Some issues that bothered me as I was reading it. And even after I finished it, because I finished it yesterday, I spent about 2 days reading it. Finished it yesterday. And, some of these issues are still, twirling in my mind. I watched some, reviews, analysis of it to get other people's opinions, see what they thought. And it got to the point where I feel like I want to do a video on this. So this is that video. Pretty much explaining some of my issues with Chainsaw Man and why I don't view it as the masterpiece that some people are claiming that it is. It's not something that hit me so hard that it became part of like my top 10 manga. Like something like Promised Neverland, even though it's not perfect, even though towards the end it trailed off, it has such a huge impact on me, especially the first few arcs, that it wound up in my top 10 manga of all time. Chainsaw Man didn't do that for me, even though it was still a pretty enjoyable read. Let me go ahead and get into the main point of this video. What prevented Chainsaw Man, in my opinion, from reaching that upper echelon tier with the Fullmetal Alchemist and the Attack on Titan and the Death Note and all those types of manga? And there's a few main reasons, but it mostly comes down to how I feel like some of the concepts or ideas or even some plot points aren't fully explained or fully explored, or maybe a little vague. Just as I was reading it, I found myself having to read pages or even chapters just to make sure, I was following everything. And there's a few main reasons for that. And the first reason I want to talk about is the pacing of the series. Now, Chainsaw Man is a fast-paced, like, action, horror, shonen, seinen, dark manga. Like, it's like it's an amalgamation of a whole lot of genres. And it's very fast-paced, which I like, because I tend to like fast-paced stories. If it takes a long time for it to kick into gear, I tend to lose interest. But sometimes I feel like it's a little too fast-paced, and it doesn't give enough time to, to breathe. It doesn't give enough time to, fully let itself rest. Fully absorb the impact of certain plot points, or fully absorb the different characters and their abilities and what they do and their motivations and things like that. the manga tends to move from plot point to plot point to plot point, which is good. But there's a lot of characters and a lot of villains in this manga, and the villains have some really weird capabilities and weird quirks, because essentially the power system in this manga revolves around demons, or devils as they call them. And there's different types of devils, and each devil has their own power and the way it works. Chainsaw Man, the main character, he turns into a chainsaw devil, and that's essentially what it is. I'm not gonna go through the whole plot of the series, because if you're watching this, I figured you already know the plot. You've either already read it or you're currently reading it. But with the type of villains and the type of powers in this show, most of them aren't typical powers or typical ways powers work. So, you know, you have to explain it. You know, how certain, you know, characters have these certain powers, or which character has what power. And with Chainsaw Man, you get a lot of villains, a lot of bad guys, a lot of characters that come in and out with different powers. And there's so many, and they get, you know, they come in, they fight, they get defeated. You don't really have a lot of times to fully process what exactly their power was and who exactly had that power, which would be fine if this was more of a monster of the week type show and you never see that villain ever again. But a lot of these villains, a lot of these bad guys, they show up at various points throughout the series, and a whole bunch of them show up at the end for like the final battle. And you have to try to remember, you know, make sure you differentiate between who has what power, which devil has what power, which fiend has what power. And sometimes it can sometimes be a little much to, you know, try to remember. And this is maybe just the fault of just me just reading the entire series at once. The people who've been following up with the series chapter by chapter, they probably don't have this issue because they have more time to actually absorb the information, because they wait every week for a new chapter. So it could just be the manner in which I'm reading this series for the first time is impacting my ability to actually retain all this information all at once. In terms of the pacing, that's my biggest gripe with it. I don't feel like the pacing is the worst thing about it, because I do like a fast-paced manga, but I do feel like it could slow itself down a little. And even talking about that pacing and talking about the powers, there's a lot of details about these powers that ended up bothering me. Like I couldn't fully accept it. You know, when a show has a power or a plot point or something, and you look at it as like, can't really accept that. That's kind of bullshit. Like I don't feel like that's supposed to happen. You know? And I felt like that a few times. Like one of the and this part is probably the thing that bothered me about that bothered me the most about the series. Just how I feel like the powers aren't really explained. Like, how does this power system really work? How does the power scaling in this universe really work? And one good example of that for me is towards the end of the series, and if you haven't finished it, this is obviously a spoiler. This entire video is a spoiler, so I don't know why you're still watching at this point. But towards the end of the series, you know, Power is essentially dead, you know? And then Denji is at the brink of death at the hands of Makima, you know? But then Pochita revives Power, and then Power revives Denji. The part about this that I can't really grasp or accept is the fact that Pochita is already part of Denji due to their contract, because Pochita revived Denji, and Pochita is the Chainsaw Man, the Chainsaw Devil. That's why Denji can turn into the Chainsaw Devil. So Pochita is already part of Denji, right? And earlier on, a few chapters before, Denji had drank Power's blood. So while Denji is on the brink of death, somehow Pochita is able to communicate with Power, since Power is inside Denji because Denji drank Power's blood. Okay, you're following me, correct? You following me? So, for some reason, I guess just drinking Power's blood makes Power inside Denji as well. So that just makes me wonder, how does this work with everybody else? all the other devils he's like eaten or drunk their blood, are they also inside him? And how long does that stay? How much blood do you actually have to drink for a remnant of their soul of their essence to still be remaining inside you for you to communicate with? That's the first part. I was like, okay, Pochita powers inside Denji because Denji drank her blood. Okay, all right, fine. But then Pochita then makes a contract with Power to revive Power, and then Denji spits out Power, and Power is fully revived. But this doesn't make sense to me because Pochita already has a contract with Denji and helped revive Denji. So while Pochita is part of Denji, Pochita can then make a contract with Power to then revive Power. How does that work in terms of power usage or power scaling? He's already used his body to revive Denji. How can Pochita also then use his body to revive Power? And okay, if you want to accept that as well, Power is revived now. Cool. Power is good. But then Power makes a contract with Denji to revive Denji? But I'm like, but the only reason Power is revived is because of Denji, because Pochita is part of Denji. So it's like this circle, and I'm like, how does that work? Where's the drawback? Like, where? It's like Fullmetal Alchemist, the law of equivalent exchange. Where's the equivalent exchange of that? Does Pochita just have unlimited ability to revive anybody regardless of his state of being? Is that it? And if that is it, why isn't that explained? And if also that is it, I feel like there's a lot of uses for that could have been used at other points throughout the story. And I just could not grasp my head around that. Pochita revived Denji. Pochita is inside of Denji. Power is not inside of Denji because Denji drank Power's blood. But Pochita being inside Denji then revives Power, and then Power pops out of Denji, and then Power revives Denji with the contract when Power was already just inside Denji and got revived by Pochita. What? Like, just thinking about it just bothers me so much. I don't know if this is a nitpick or if I'm thinking about it too hard, but it just bothers me. It doesn't fully make sense. I don't know. Like, I want you guys' opinion. Tell me if I'm just reading that wrong, if it does make sense, but I'm being an asshole. I'm not looking at it the correct way. I just want you guys' opinion, because it didn't fully make sense to me, in my opinion. And the next thing about these powers is, another example is Makima, and the fact that, she'll constantly heal because of her contract with the Prime Minister. And any damage she gets, it sacrifices the life of a Japanese resident, and they either die of an accident or some type of natural cause, right? I guess the main part of that is if she's attacked. And I guess that part is left vague on purpose. And I guess it would be fine if I didn't already have issues with how some of these powers worked. Like, in terms of having contracts with these devils, how exactly do these contracts work? Is there a limit to how many contracts a devil can have with a human? If multiple humans have contracts with the devil, what happens if both of those humans uses their contract at the same time? Does that negate each other? Does the devil have to somehow choose who to actually fulfill? There's a lot of questions in my head, and maybe this is just my super analytical mind that's just thinking too hard or something that shouldn't be thought of that much. But the power system was what bothered me the most in terms of lacking explanation. And when it comes to Makima being attacked, and the keyword is attacked, and how she didn't revive because Denji ate her, and I guess the rationale was Denji didn't attack her by eating her because Denji doesn't hate Makima. Denji loves her, and Denji ate her out of love, so Makima couldn't be revived. And I'm like, I guess. But I feel like that's plain semantics. And I don't like when a plot point is based on plain semantics, you know? And that's something I was like, okay, I'll accept it. I don't really agree, but I'll accept it. And then another thing that really bothered me about these powers is Chainsaw Man specifically. Towards the end, when Denji fully becomes the Chainsaw Devil, he's not just Denji, conjuring up the Chainsaw Man's powers. He fully becomes Chainsaw Man. And then we find out who the Chainsaw Man is. He's the hero of hell, hero of the underworld. All the demons fear him. And any devil that he eats, it erases their name from existence. And that sounds cool as fuck. But what exactly does that mean? I know some people watching this are probably gonna get annoyed that I'm asking all these questions, but listen, one example they gave, like just hear me out, follow me. One example they gave is the Nazis, because in this world, the Nazis don't exist because Chainsaw Man ate the devil related to the Nazis. You see where I'm going? Because in the story, in the paneling, they reveal that Chainsaw Man, he eats any devil he eats, he erases them from existence, past, present, future. And then Makima is really the only one that can actually remember these names for whatever reason. And one way they prove that is Makima asked, I forgot dude's name, the dude with the scar and stitches on his mouth. Ever heard of the Jews and the Nazis? And dude was like, the Nazis? What are those? And that's to show, and that whole sequence was to show that, Chainsaw Man can erase names from existence. Cool. But, logistically, is there a Nazi devil? Like, what does that mean? Like, did the Nazis in this universe exist due to a Nazi devil that was then sent to the underworld and eaten? Or did Hitler turn into a devil and get sent to hell and he ate the devil version of Hitler? Or did the Nazis come to power in this universe by the use of a specific devil? And since that devil was so closely associated with the Nazis, when Chainsaw Man ate that devil in hell, it erased all existence of the Nazis? Like, you see where I'm coming? Like, what do they mean by name? Like, to me, that reads that there's a Nazi devil. I'm like, why is there a Nazi devil? Like, what is his power? To hate Jews? Like, I don't, you see what I mean? Things like that, it bothered me while reading it. Like, the story and the plot and the characters and the monsters are so good in this show. But the power system is so vague to me. It doesn't fully make sense, even though it sounds so cool. And that was the thing that bothered me the most about this series. A couple other things that bothered me a little bit. I just talked about how cool the monsters look. And the art in this series is pretty phenomenal, at points. And then other times the art is like the art for me was up and down. There was parts, there was panels, there was pages that I would watch and the art looks amazing. Especially when the action is really going in, and especially towards the end when he turns into the full Chainsaw Man devil. The art looks amazing. But then there's other parts of the art that just looks okay. Sometimes it looks subpar to me. And maybe this is because I'm an artist myself, and maybe that's why I notice some of these things. Sometimes the facial expressions, I don't feel like they're drawn that well or that expressive at certain points. The way the paneling is done can be really stylistic and dope at points. The way the artist, I think his name is Fujimoto. Tatsuki Fujimoto is the name of the artist. The way he, designed some of these panels are so fucking incredible at points. Like there's one panel where Chainsaw Man cuts through, I believe, like the eye of one monster, but then it leads into the next page, and that same arm is then like slicing the neck of that same monster in like another sequence. It just looked great. Like the paneling can be really great sometimes, but it can also be really hard to follow sometimes. And I think it's because of the style of the manga. There's a lot of black, a lot of dark, a lot of sketchy lines sometimes make it hard to read, and also the panel flow sometimes can be really difficult to read. Some like an artist that I always point to that has amazing like innate ability to draw panels that easily flow with the way that you read and it's easily understandable is Akira Toriyama. And the way that he draws Dragon Ball and the way he panels Dragon Ball, like it flows so smoothly. He has amazing panel design, Akira Toriyama. Like it's hard to be confused or not follow when you're reading Dragon Ball. But not every mangaka has that same, innate talent, innate ability. I know a lot of times reading Naruto, I would sometimes not be able to keep track on exactly what's going on. And there was times like that as I was reading Chainsaw Man. I would have to reread a page or two just to make sure I'm following everything correctly. And another big gripe about the art, and I know this is gonna be weird, but why does he draw shoes like that? Why are all the shoes drawn like that? I remember the first time I noticed it was in the very first chapter, and I tried to get used to it. I was like, maybe that's just his style. But I could never get used to how he draws feet and shoes. Like, it's so blocky and cartoony. Like, the style of the feet just is completely different from how the rest of the character's body and clothes are stylized. Like, it seems so cartoony compared to the rest of the body. And it's like the proportions are the same for every character. Like, why are the shoes drawn like that? Like, why is it so short and stubby? Like, why are the shoes drawn like that? Like, am I crazy? Am I crazy for that annoying me? Why are the shoes drawn like that? Just draw the shoes normally. Oh my god. But that's it on that particular point. Alright, and the only other thing that I would say, in terms of things that bother me about Chainsaw Man is, some of the character development isn't all the way there, which I'm not too bothered by, because, it is a fast-paced manga, there's a lot of characters, you can't develop everybody, so they didn't really bother me too much. But one thing I wish they did do was explain Makima's motives a little more. Give her a little bit of backstory. Why does she decide to make the perfect world in this way? What influenced these decisions? Like, she just comes through with this grand plan of, she's a control devil. She'll control Chainsaw Man and have him eat devils and erase all the bad things from existence. Pretty cool plan, pretty dope. But why? Why exactly does she want to do that? That's really the only other minor thing that I could really think of that, I feel like would have made the series better. But overall, the series is still a really good series. I don't want people to watch this video and feel like I'm trashing on Chainsaw Man or shitting on Chainsaw Man. I just feel like I'm just giving a different opinion, different discourse, more discussion about the show. And I don't feel like it's a masterpiece that some people are saying, but it is definitely worth your time and worth you reading it. Just simply for the plot and alone, just the concepts in here, the character designs for these monsters, and some of the plot twists that are, they're seeds to this plot twist, and it's everywhere, and it's a really good read. It just had some things that prevented it from being a top tier manga for me. But at the same time, this is only part one of a series that's gonna keep going. I don't know how long it's gonna keep going. And a lot of these questions, especially that I had about how these demon abilities worked, could be answered in the next part of this series. I just wish that more of it was answered in this original part, because this is our first experience with this show. It's our, first impression. This is us getting a taste of what this show has to offer. And it's way more than a taste, because it's a fully contained story. But the story is still really good. It really kicks into the gear after the halfway point, and really just keeps going. And I enjoyed reading it, all the way through, even with my gripes and complaints that I've had on it. It's a really entertaining read, and you guys should read it if you haven't read Chainsaw Man. The pacing's a little fast, and it probably needed maybe about 15 more chapters to, give it a little bit more room to breathe, but still a great read nonetheless. My name is Teray, for those who don't know. Make sure you like, you comment, you subscribe. If you disagree with me, tell me why you disagree. If you feel like this is a masterpiece, all power to you. Tell me why it's a masterpiece. If you dislike this video, go ahead and dislike it, because I feel like I'm probably gonna get some of those. That's about all I gotta say on Chainsaw Man. Pretty great manga. I'm glad I read it. I'm looking forward to the anime, and I hope that's just as good, if not better. That's it for me, guys. It's Teray, and I'll see y'all later, Mai. Peace.